lost a video. Michael, I'm sure you're working on. There he is. He's back. Didn't want to move forward without you, sir. Thanks for being here. Couple of bumps in my monologue, but hopefully the message got through. Here we are, gentlemen. I salute you right out of the gate. Thank you for being here. And off the heels of that monologue, hopefully you listen to it because I'm going to ask some questions about it. Off the heels of that monologue, describe for us, we'll begin, of course, with retired Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi of Australia. Off the heels of that monologue, describe for us where you see us at. It's kind of a big question. Take your time, if you will. Paint the picture for our viewers. Where are we presently at in this war? And highlight any key fronts you choose, and also what you anticipate to occur before the end of this year. So where are we at? In other words, where have we come? Where are we today? And where do you see as some focal point highlights transpiring over the rest of this year? Riccardo Bosi, sir.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having us. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Absolute pleasure to be with you all. Okay, very quickly. What a lot of people are having difficulty with is following the cascading activities around the planet at the tactical level, operational level, campaign level, and strategic level, and even the grand strategy. And people are having difficulty putting the picture together. That's by design. We know that. That's, of course, the reason. But where we're at right now, and if you could put a title, I guess, on this phase of the operation, this is for the people. And the title would be this: The Price of Failure to Act. The price of failure to act. And the reason I say that is because the people, it's already started now. The alleged reason is the Strait of Hormuz and the blockage, and then the interference with the flow of oil. Therefore, the prices have spiked, and we'll talk in detail later. But that is the supposed trigger to all the drama that's going on right now, but that's not it at all. This is the price of the failure to act. All the things that are going on around the planet, and they can be related to Hormuz, they could be related, completely unrelated to Hormuz, but this is what the people now have to experience for not holding their people to their representatives to account, for not keeping an eye on what was going on, for trusting too many people for too long, without sticking their nose into somebody else's business and saying, hang on a minute, you didn't promise me this, you didn't promise me that, and why are you delivering it to it? So this is the moment in history where the Australian people, because I can tell you that from personal experience, it's hurting down here, but it's also hurting around the world. And the people are going to start to feel the squeeze. It's going to be painful, it's going to be excruciating, they're going to get very, very angry, and I'm not hoping for this, but I can imagine there's going to be some violence occur. Sporadic, not necessarily organized, but sporadic, geographically dispersed, that people are eventually going to realize what's happened to them, what's been done to them. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've been saying this for so many years now. If we don't stand up, it'll be taken from us. We didn't stand up. It has been taken from us. Everything's been taken from us. And the people are about to find that out. Now, this is the key moment for this operation as far as the people are concerned. None of this would have happened had the people stood up, but they didn't. And there's a lot of many reasons for that. They've been demoralized, they've been brainwashed, they've been MK Ultra, they've been poisoned, they've been gassed, you name it, everything. They've been dumbed down, they've been irradiated with 5G, they've been injected with the COVID nonsense. There's a million reasons why it occurred. But at every point, the people failed to stand up and claim this sovereignty they claim they have, to say, this is my country, I am the source of law. What I say goes. But as we know, if you throw something out in the trash, anybody can come and collect that trash and take it away. That's evidence that you're uninterested. And the sad reality is most of the planet, and some are more culpable than others because they don't have a history of personal sovereignty or the rights coming from the people. But those nations that do, we should have stood up and we didn't. And now we're going to feel the pain. There's nothing that can stop what's coming. We've been saying that a long time. We've been warning about it for a long time, many years now. Get some gas in your garage, get some tinned food, get some cash, buy your precious metals, and get ready to hunker down. For how long? We don't know. All we know is that if it goes for too long, the black hats win, so the white hats won't let it go too long. But the pain you're about to feel, and don't shoot me, I'm just a piano player. The pain we're all about to feel is a result of our complacency, our docility, our imbecility, all of those things. It's on us. We're going to have to pay the price.
Tough love and honest words from Riccardo Bosi. Thank you, sir. Two quick comments. We'll take that same question around the panel. One is, you use the term NDE, a near-death experience. That hasn't even arrived, but you're getting a drip of it. Those that are having difficult time getting gasoline, for example, and prices going up, and some of the things you've indicated. And my last follow-up is saving America and redirecting humanity on this course correction is not a spectator sport. So thank you, sir. Same question to retired Colonel Tom Lennox, if you'd like to weigh in on where we're presently at and what you see on the forefront the rest of this year.
I see that there's a wide divergence in reaction of people. We're still probably at 20% really know what's going on. 80%, some know something, some know very little, some know nothing. And I'm going to say it is 20% know nothing. And that's my guess. But what's going to happen at some point before July 4th, I believe we'll have an EBS. And the EBS will be a near-death experience for a lot of people. A lot of people. And it's just there. We know a lot, but I would venture to guess we only know 75% of what's really going on, maybe 70%. And so when we look at it, we have to understand that for us, there'll be shocks. And for the people that are not aware, there'll be big shocks. And I think things like Iran and Israel and all that's in the media, they get upset about it, but, oh, that's far away. That's no problem. We don't need to worry about that. It's when they learn about the babies and they learn about the selling of the children and they learn about the dumbs under the ground and they learn about the Hillary Clintons having 149 people she had killed that we know about. And they find out that their favorite people were absolute 100% criminals. 60 senators took money from Venezuela. That's huge. And all the money that was ripped off, I'm going to say, along the way, you send $1 billion to the Ukraine and 800 million of it goes back to some congressmen and senators and all of that. When they learn all of that, they will have, in my estimation, some level of collapse. And then their money goes away for a short period of time, but it's going to go away. The bank account's zero. All of those things are going to happen. And they're not too far away. I think they'll happen sometime before May 17th. And the reason I say May 17th is that's when Trump is going to do the prayer that simulates the one that George Washington did on May 17th of 1776. And that's my summary, I guess.
Well, thank you. There's a common theme here, folks. I'll think of 3 Ps: pray, plan, and prepare is on the docket. Thank you, sir. Same question to Michael Jaco, sir.
Yeah, I think we're going to see probably boots on the ground here pretty soon in Iran. We just sent 82nd Airborne. Looks like they're going over there as well. So we have 2 different new groups going there, Marine Expeditionary Units that are headed there. Probably one's already there now. The other one will be there in 2-3 weeks. Now, a lot of people think that, in the past, we get bogged down. We don't get bogged down, speaking from all of us here, we don't get bogged down. It's the administrations, the deep state that bogs us down. We don't have that now. So this is the difference that's going to happen with this war or this conflict. We're going to move very quickly into, taking down this enemy in Iran. So that's coming. We're going to see probably within a year, because every time we've had a spike in oil, within a year we have a collapse in the stock market. Silver prices accelerate to a very high level, and gold follows after that. So we'll see that happen. There's a lot of great things that are coming. I think we're going to start to see the rest that we've been waiting for. We're going to see, the 2020 election still, the problems with our election system, and this is going to translate all across the world, where we're going to see, multiple countries throughout the world get exposure for their election fraud as well. People that have been in office for a very long time, throughout several decades, we're going to find out that they need to stand justice as well. So not just the ones that are there now, but for several, maybe even decades going back, we're going to find that some people are going to get arrested. Of course, the same thing with the medical fraud that happened with us with the COVID. That's going to come down on people. That's already starting to happen here in the United States on a massive level. Several states are voting to make mRNA shots illegal and a terrorist act. If any group or any company or any individual tries to administer an mRNA shot, so that's going to translate into all the companies, all the individuals that push that on a very great level have to stand justice. So, Guantanamo is going to be filled. We're probably going to see other places that are going to be filled, because it's an extreme number of people that have, perpetrated fraud on the American people and the people of the world. So great things are coming, but we're probably going to have some problems. The State Department just put out that around the world, the government of Iran has sent sleeper cells around the world, and they're possibly and probably going to start to strike American citizens, not only here in our country, but around the world. So like Colonel Bosi was saying, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi was saying, there's going to be pain. There's going to be some pain in the future. We have brought this on ourselves. We allow these people to come in and get control. We haven't managed it like we should. We, the people, it's our countries, it's our governments, and we allowed very, very evil psychopaths to come in and take over. So we're going to have to clean that up, and it's going to be painful because they're going to resist, and they're going to send their minions out to fight us. And so we're going to have to stand up to them, not just around the world, but also in our countries. So our countries will see probably violent action as well. All of us have been talking about this coming in the near future. I think it's right on the doorstep. I have friends throughout the military still that tell me that bases are being locked down. There's very heavy threats on our military installations in the United States. We've seen a little bit of that leak out into the press, but those bases have locked down quite severely. So a lot of pain coming, but on the other side of this, probably jubilee, debt forgiveness, a lot of money that's been, through bonds and so forth. All of us have bonds throughout the world on us. Everything we do, we're bonded. It's totally illegal. The money from a lot of that is going to come back to us. So a lot of people that are living in poverty and despair and so forth will probably get some help going forward. You have to live through the coming wave of violence and problems. So also all of us have been saying, make sure you're stocked up with provisions to get you through the tough times. But on the other side of this is a golden age that's beyond belief.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, I think it was a Clint Eastwood movie. Derrick would know better. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is what comes to mind here. That's what's in store for the rest of this year. Thank you, Michael, and important information about about retaliation. These are the final battles. Incredible operation that's taking place. Same question to Rob Cunningham, sir. Welcome to the panels.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's quite an honor. The thing that I've focused on radically escalating here in the last few months is, the verse that the power of death and life is in the tongue. God spoke this world into existence, and we've been hypnotized into existence with lies, with not knowing who we are, whose we are. We don't have hard values that we believe in. So if we can be told anything and we don't know how to defend it because it's not politically correct to let your yeses be yes and your noes be noes, they lie to us, they indoctrinate us, they MK Ultra us, they politically correct, threaten to separate us with name calling or just basically divide and conquer. It's an age-old battle, and we are all, as civilians and military, on a battlefield that most have slowly over time been inadequately prepared to even understand when we're being lied to. If you don't know what your rights are, you don't have any. And slowly over time, the bread and circuses, the fun, the money, the football, all of the stuff that we've done, the school, the college, the debt, the money system, the food-like substances that don't have a damn ounce of nutrients in them, they've slowly made us stupid. Now, unfortunately, we had to consent. We are guilty. We are parties of this, if you will, slumber party. And to think about it, if there are principalities of darkness that would like to kick our ass, it's probably a lot easier to put us to sleep first and then have their way with us, because they're now starting to see what it looks like when the world begins to awaken. And I look at what's happened in just the last few months, and you look at what President Trump has done and his team have done in Venezuela, in Mexico, in Cuba, in Iran twice, what they're doing in the Hormuz Strait, what they're doing with Israel, what they're doing in Ukraine, what they're doing. They found, I think, 32 out of 44 of the private banks in Iraq had been infiltrated and controlled by Iran. We've exposed that our special relationship British partners are not special relationship partners or friends or allies. The very first thing we did when we went to Iran was they ordered Lloyd's of London to jack up cancel insurance premiums in the hopes that oil prices would spike all over the world and it would create political instability and chaos so they could maintain their control monopoly. So we've seen Russia decide they're going to leave BRICS and embrace the new U.S. Treasury dollar system. So if Russia leaves the BRICS, that whole system goes away. China is now begging for oil because their oil providers in the Hormuz Strait, in Venezuela, in Mexico, and Iran can no longer provide them the oil they need. So what we're seeing is this octopus with, and I call the City of London, the money changers that have been doing central banking since 1694, and their tentacles, they finance central banks. They finance this big boogie proxy man known as Iran. For 40 years, the world has been told they're 2 weeks away from a nuclear bomb. We should all live in fear. They've had missiles pointed at 11 Middle Eastern countries, and we're all just supposed to endlessly fund Middle East wars and write checks to Israel and watch the Strait of Hormuz be this tiny little choke point node for so much of the world's energy, and we've been held hostage through this centralized financing source. I mean, here we are owing $39 trillion to a 1 square mile area on the Thames River, known as the City of London. It doesn't produce anything, hire anything, manufacture anything, invent anything, grow anything, and distribute anything. All this little 1 square mile territory does is manipulate capital markets and foreign exchange rates, create financial fiction the world over through their fractional reserve banking system, buy off governments, buy off politicians, buy off industries, buy off religions, put us to sleep. But the good news is they now see exactly what Commander-in-Chief President Trump is doing. He's cutting off every one of the octopus's arms. He sees how he's opening up the oil and energy and money arteries or capillaries so money and value and freedom can flow in a distributed, decentralized manner instead of being controlled by a bunch of freaks in the city of London and their franchises in the Federal Reserve and wherever else they have their little monopolistic money system. Well, that goes back to you can't serve two masters. We've been unfortunately unaware of the master that we've been serving, and thank God President Trump is cutting those arteries, ending their fake fiat monetary system, and systematically going about the process of waking 7 or 8 billion people up so that we can start reintroducing ourselves to who we are and whose we are instead of just being mindless slaves. So I'm just honored that I'm on a panel with a bunch of men like you that can help to wake up the rest of the population as powerfully as we possibly can, because we have to wake up or we don't win.
Great analysis. Thank you, sir. You know, going back to what you first opened up with and addressing it to our audience, you are on a battlefield. Doesn't matter if you're serving in the armed forces. Every one of us are physically on the battlefield, and we are the target. So thank you for reminding us of that, and great analysis. Derrick Johnson, you've been patiently waiting. How would you like to respond to this?
Well, first and foremost, it is an honor to be here, as always, and an honor to be with Rob. I think he probably is a friend of my manager's. I'm pretty sure, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure that's the same Rob. So it's good to be here with all of you. And I know Jaco's over there probably laughing because, you know, I'm having to wait now to be the full last to talk so we can have some fun with this. So, you know, I'm going to rattle off now. But there's two things that, you know, to remind people out there in the audience world, whether you're a patriot, Republican, conservative, independent, whatever you are, if you just woke up, you've been away, whatever you think you are, there's two things that they're still playing to you. The things you got to see for the target audience that has no idea that Lieutenant Colonel Lennox was talking about, whether they know a little bit of stuff or nothing at all, whatever that is, they got to see this play out. To the Patriots, you have to see it in another manner, but also understand that I use 3 P's in all of my podcasts: principles, priorities, and prevention. It's easy to look back on the past and judge the past, always. But if you don't sharpen your skills and elevate your skills and your thinking, we cannot prevent the swamp from growing back. You have to, that's where everybody's responsibility comes in. And that's what other people talk about the local action and things. You got to know the laws and the orders, though, because if you don't know your rights, if you don't know the laws, then they're going to be abused always. So if you know the law more than the lawyer does, it don't mean you got to practice the law, just to read and know and study the law. But if you read and study and know the law, then the one that is doing the practice for you, if they get out of line, you can say, look, I don't want your job, but I actually know that what you're doing is fraudulent or you're cutting corners here, whatever it may be. So that's where your role comes in. And then also keep in mind, everything that President Trump has set up is to the T. every T dotted, every T crossed, every I dotted, everything to the T of a military government, all right, by law. Now, this goes to the Law of War Manual where it talks about the undesirability. Every single one of these men on this panel that you see right here, they've done their service. Now, I know every one of them will suit up again if we absolutely had to get into an actual suit again and go out there. We would, they would, but every one of these men are taking time out of their life, all right, to deliver to you their experience, a lot more than my experience inside the military, active duty, all right? But every bit of this is a military government. And in the Law of War Manual, where it talks about undesirability, it means that we came to a crossroads, as Elon said not terribly long ago. We came to a crossroads in civilization where we had to go, okay, do we keep going down this route? Because a lot of people have no idea how close we were to capsizing in a complete world level eruption of everything because of these elites. They're so dumb. It's like President Trump calls two things. He says some of them are stupid and just low IQ, but some of them are stupid and evil. So you can still be intelligent, brilliant, and smart, but still be evil. So there's two different people that we've been also fighting on that external factor and internal factor out there that do the evil. So there's two different entities. So what I find is right now people are still not listening to the commander. All right, you're not listening to him. You might be hearing, but you're not listening. And you got to pay attention to detail. And there's one thing that any of these leaders right here were in the military that told all of us lower enlisted and lower officers out there is you pay attention to detail. Pay attention to detail. Every little detail matters. All right, and that's where you learn who is and who isn't, especially even in the military. Who knows the laws? Who knows the orders? Who knows the regulations? Who knows the directives? Who knows the instructions? Who knows the manuals? Who's been reading the manuals? Who's been reading the publications? So you're finding out who is and who isn't. So right now, every one of you are finding out what influencers out there who are and who isn't, who are in their intent and motives or some other thing. And you're also finding out who actually knows what the heck is going on. So the undesirability means that none of us wanted to be here either, but we know what's going on. We also know what it takes to win this thing. We are winning this thing. It's already been done, but the reason why we have to say some things that it's not done is your job and role and responsibility and duties are not to sit on your thumb and not prepare for the future. You need to be in the mindset of what Native Americans do, is what my people do, is you live your life right now for 7 generations out. And if the next generation does that, then guess what? Will be off the chain. Now, the other thing, this is not a war by standards with Iran. The war is the military government and the undesirability to have to do it. That is the war. That is the shell that President Trump and the military, the generals, the admirals have set up. It's a military government. By law, it's a military government. You can read everywhere. Also, what President Trump has done, there's no way he walked in all these nations and got done what he's done. All these capitulations took place from 2017 to 2019. Every bit of these nations working with us, with Iran, took place back here in 2017 to 2019. Some new nations that came on board and became a part of the Abraham Accords. Every bit of these are in the National Defense Authorization Acts from 22 to 24. How did they already know to put in the NDAAs what was going to happen the next year? Every one of the year before, so the year before NDAAs, the year of what they were going to be operating the next year, it's already written over here what's happening over here, which means it's strategic. Congress knows about it because they're in a continuity government. The law shows that Congress is still, to this day, in a partial continuity government. And President Trump has validated this. He's validated it over and over. Today in yesterday, it's already a new day, but in Memphis, Tennessee, he validated. He said what they're calling a war, it's a military operation. So he validated this whole operation with Law of War Manual terms. He uses occupied territory, white flag of surrender, restoration. All of those are in the Law of War Manual under military occupation. The term restoration is directly related to a military government. And then also in the military government, you've seen things like your validities, the 1798 Aliens Act, your First and Fifth Amendments are gone when that is invoked, when it is in action. Well, what does military government say about that? Military government specifically outlines that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are suspended during a time of war of such nature when you have the validities of that. So all these influencers also are captured, like X is captured. Recently, you've seen Palantir be announced to be the new app for AI for the military. All right, all these rhinos and never Trumpers surface, and they're going crazy. They have our information. I'm like, did you not read the article? The article says they're compiling data from existing databases. They already had your information, and Palantir started working with the military in 2011. So see, people prove that they don't read, you don't study, and I say it, I know it sounds bad sometimes, but I say it as lighthearted as possible. The better technology gets, the dumber Americans get. You have everything right in front of you. You have a computer daily. You have a phone in your hand all the time, which is no longer a phone anymore. It's a miniature computer because you have Google access daily. You have everything you need. You're just looking for truth in all the wrong places, kind of like the new version of the country song. You're looking for truth in all the wrong places and all the wrong faces. If you want to know what's going on, you got to know who's in command. And in military government, it talks about this in our military government and martial law proper, and also a thing called military law and precedents, who are all written by colonels, generals, etc. In there, it says you got to know who's in command and what are they using in law. Every bit of President Trump's laws in vote outlines this. Now look at this. I just was talking to a friend right before the panel tonight, and I was telling people, I said, I've forgotten more than some people know. And then I said something on the phone that made me think, you know what, the next panel that we have talk about this, and lo and behold, we're talking about it. I'm going to bring this back up. They had to show to the people out there that a war started in Israel with a music festival with these kamikaze pilots, right? Because people have to have drama in order to get them engaged, which is pathetic to all of us with intellect. But President Trump said you got to give the people what they want. People love drama, so they got to have it dealt out that way. Well, on October 7th, 2023, and we have sir here, Rob here, who was a pilot. In 2023, in 1 week's time, ladies and gentlemen, my friend Siggy Flicker, she loves it when I rattle off. In 1 week's time, in Israel, these are the military aircraft that they displayed to you on live radar that anybody could get on if you know how to click on it and filter out to the military aircraft. In 1 week's time, you had Sweden, you had France, Germany, Belgium, Romania, you had the UAE, Nigeria, Algeria, New Zealand, Australia, Japan. You had also Argentina, Mexico, U.S., Canada. You had a lot of other nations sprinkled in there. You had Turkey, different in 1 week's time. And then the kicker, they were telling all the target audience out there that Russia and Ukraine were in a heated war and all this other stuff. So I guess Ukraine and Russia just had a chance to go, you know what? We hate each other, and the world thinks we hate each other. We're in a war, but we're going to pause because there's a humanitarian effort going on down here in Israel. Russia and Ukraine aircrafts were in Israel with all those other aircrafts. It's a world operation. So there's two things: what you got to see and what you don't know, or what you can know, and then when you see it, you're going to realize, wait, this is a world operation. It's biblical, historical, monumental. But where you can't sit on your thumb is knowing that, okay, yeah, we're taking care of it. You can't be in a demand position to the command going, get it done. Why is it taking so long? And all these other things. You need to realize that, like these gentlemen said, great points, that, look, you're the beneficiary of sitting on your thumb, not knowing the three branches of government. You've heard me on my podcast talk about it. 68% of 350 million people, if you walked up to them on the street, said, name the three branches of government. Don't tell me what they do. Don't tell me any names. Just simply name the three branches titles. People can't name them. So how can you demand to the command what you think you want, what you think you want to see? And personally, do I believe in justice? Absolutely. But it's an atrocity when we have people who can't even name the three branches of government, yet you want to see executions of people dying. There's something wrong with you on that level as well. Do you need to see justice? Sure. But the product of justice is the product of laziness and complacency of the things you're supposed to know to prevent the evil from ever having a chance to even grow in the ground, to even have a chance to be fertilized, to have a chance to grow, to have a chance to flourish.
Wow, thank you, Derrick. A couple of quick takeaways, folks. It's a military government. You are on the battlefield. We, the people, are the target. Pay attention to detail. You're hearing but not listening. Some great takeaways. Thank you, Derrick. The interest of our time, let's be brief on this next question because I've got some other things I know are on the minds of our viewers and I want to make sure we get to, including a trip to see Elvis Presley's home. We're going to talk about that later. But let's get into Iran for a moment here. And again, to the panel, let's be brief on this. We're going to move into another subject. Back to Colonel Bosi, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi, there seems to be conflicting reports as to when Epic Fury will officially end. Michael Jaco's just revealed the information of more than likely boots on the ground. So there are conflicting reports concerning the end of the operation. Okay, so that's part A of what I'm getting at. So please comment on that, as well as delving into the importance. We touched on it already, some of us, so again, we'll be brief. The importance of the Straits of Hormuz. Why is that area so important? What's being done there? How does that play out? And how long will Epic Fury go on?
Epic Fury started before we heard Epic Fury started. It will continue beyond when we are told Epic Fury ends, because nobody's going to get the whole picture. And just so we understand that, there are objectives to be achieved post the stated reason for the conflict, and that will continue. And boots on the ground in this case, just so to calm people's spirits, this is not Iraq 2.0. Nothing like it, not even close. We're not talking regime change, we're talking leadership change. And there are multiple objectives that are unseen, apart from the obvious. So let's talk about the obvious. So that's Epic Fury. If they give you a date, it's not real. Don't believe it. It's still going on. But question number two, Straits of Hormuz, quick rundown. 20% of the world's seaborne oil goes through the strait. It represents something between 60 and 80% of the revenue, say, of Saudi and the UAE, which means they're terribly interested in the Straits of Hormuz. In fact, one of my first jobs when I hit the Middle East was to do some planning to prevent Iran from doing exactly what they're doing in terms of threatening the Straits. But that's the stated reason. Now, is oil the only thing going through? Sorry, one more thing with the oil. If the oil remains cut off or is cut off, because it's still flowing, if it is cut off, then China, India, and the Japanese economies are hit dramatically. And that's going to have a cascading effect around the planet, because many countries around the planet, by design, are now reliant upon India, China, and Japan for things they should be doing themselves. So that's sort of an obvious reason. But beyond that, the Straits of Hormuz issue also speaks to the control of the City of London. As we know, it's been said before, Iran's been a proxy of the City of London. It's been allowed to exist because it is a very effective method of control for the City of London and the British Empire. Choke points generally are part of a naval strategy that was described by Alfred Thayer Mahan, a US naval captain, who described naval strategy much like Clausewitz did for land strategy. He did that 120 years ago. And it's still a key point, because what Mahan said was, don't have a navy and have it sail the ocean blue. Just find the choke points. You can control trade. You can control the passage of naval vessels. You control the planet. And that's another part to it. Then you've got, not only is oil being trafficked or being shipped through the straits, but also everything that you can think that should be nasty. At the least of these, which is the illegal oil and precious metal trade that it goes through, and then it starts to descend into you know where, child trafficking, human trafficking, adrenochrome trafficking, and it just continues. So it's not just oil. There's a whole, as I said, many sub-objectives to be achieved. And I'll stop here and let others have a shot, but I'll also say one more thing about Iran. Do you remember the story? And I'm asking this for a friend. Let's just put it that way. Do you remember the story? The tomb of Gilgamesh we went into Iraq allegedly because Saddam was a bad man. And yet one of the priority objectives were, and this might not be true, I don't know, was to recover the artifacts from the tomb of Gilgamesh. Well, there might just be, and I don't think I'm giving anything away here, there might just be, let's say, a satanic reason for getting into Iran and taking and clearing a few things out as a control center for not just oil, not just money and power, not just for choke points, but for some deeper need that needs to be taken out that we won't hear about for some time. So that's a quick rundown in answer to your question. I'll leave some space for the others.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll comment later. I've got something to say, but I'll get the panel in. Same question to Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox. Straits of Hormuz, you want to break that down? And I guess we won't be asking when this operation will end. What a foolish question that is. And you won't get the answer, whether we know it or not. But anyway, take it on, sir, if you will, please.
Well, there's some interesting things about the Middle East. And I was reading a book today, written some time back, and it seems there are a large number of portals in the Middle East. And one of the things the Khazarians are looking for is to get to their portals so they can escape the United States and the world. And Iran has a number of portals, which goes outside of our normal discussion, but it goes to the idea that it's not just about here, it's about out there. The other thing is, because of the Khazarians, and we look at the city of London, the Rothschilds are in fact Khazarians. And they have controlled the finances for a large part of the world for hundreds of years. And closing them down in London, I saw something yesterday or day before, is that when you close down the Rothschilds in Iran, you're going to also close down the Rothschilds in Israel, which is the number one trafficker of humans in the world. And so when we start to look at what we're doing in Iran, we're really getting ready to close down Israel as well. The Strait of Hormuz is interesting because if we say it's 20% of the world's oil that moves across there, and then we look at what Trump has done in the United States, which has reopened our leadership as the largest oil producer in the world, China and Japan will be coming to the United States to buy all their oil. They see you smile. And because we control Venezuela, which is also a very, very large producer of oil, China will also go to Venezuela, but they'll be going through the United States to get it. So when we look at that concept, and then we start to look at the question that Riccardo asked about all of the artifacts. There are artifacts in Iran and in other places in the Middle East that those people who like to go dig for them have been forbidden to go dig for because they reveal a lot about the ancient history of the world. the earth. I think that's enough.
Thank you very much. Wow, it's interesting. Just a quick comment to our viewers. My line of questioning thus far has not included the word London or Israel yet. That's the names that keep coming up, does it not, when we discuss the operation? So that's very, very telling. And again, to Derrick's point, you're hearing, but are you listening? Very, very good stuff. And I just quick comment on this. We won't go there today. The portals that you referred to, Lieutenant Colonel Lennox, and the galactic off-planet issues, the UFOs, the aliens, and all that. We're going to take that on a little deeper as our commander-in-chief and president starts to drip out those top secret files. Then we'll coattail along that, and we'll get into that. So come back and listen, because that day is coming. Same question to Michael Jaco. Straits of Hormuz, if you want to break that, you covered it before, but break that down further if you wish.
Yeah, so the problems of the Middle East basically originate from Iran, and also all the way back to the city of London with the financing. So I spent over 30 years, 3 decades in the Middle East. Tier 1. SEAL Team 6, and also CIA high levels, running down terrorists and so forth. It was pretty much funded by Iran. So we have to take out Iran. So it's basically we've squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and now we're down to the last kernel of this compromised system of humanity, and we started to go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole. I love that, but we can save that for another time. But Rothschilds are being, their bank accounts are being seized in France right now. Now, just a few days ago, Le Pen won several elections in France. So the conservative side finally overcoming 4 decades worth of communist rule that was started by the CIA, funded by the CIA throughout Europe, taking down politicians and so forth, and inserting communist leadership, which basically is controlled by all the different intelligence agencies, and then of course further up the chain where we start to get into those very dark forces that we kind of alluded to here in a couple of these gentlemen. Fantastic work. So also in Germany, overcoming massive fraud in elections and good conservatives coming forth in Germany. So I think we're going to continue to see this wave of conservative, good people that are coming in to basically take down this evil. Rothschild, like we talk about, the financing, follow the money, the financing side of this, all the way back to the city of London. We're still at war. Revolutionary War never stopped. All right. So we're still in, if you will, a second Revolutionary War against the city of London, right? The British Empire, which is the city of London. So we have to take that down. We have to destroy that as well. I've talked about how, maybe we should just invade the city of London, but there's more, very subtle ways that Donald Trump is taking down the city of London. And I appreciate the way he's doing this. And that will preserve a lot of lives. It will also preserve a lot of territory that would otherwise be destroyed. You might think otherwise from what's going on in Iran right now with all the, over 8,000 missile strikes and bombs and so forth that we've hit, targets that we've hit in Iran at this point. Over 8,000, amazing. But these are precision strikes, and then eventually what we saw in Afghanistan and Iraq. Afghanistan, we just had a few horse soldiers that were calling in, strikes and basically took down the Taliban. In northern Iraq, we had, some Air Force CCT guys that came in and called in fire and basically devastated Saddam's military in the northern area. So we'll probably see the same thing in Iraq. I believe that we'll probably see boots on the ground in Iraq or in Iran. And if we don't, that's great. But, from my perspective, it looks like it's moving in that direction with all the forces that are going there. Why would we be sending 2 different MU groups there? and 82nd Airborne, like we saw today, going into somewhere in the Middle East, probably Saudi Arabia, I would assume, and then launching from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia basically said, continue the war, President Trump. Israel said, continue the war, President Trump. So President Trump is like, we'll negotiate while our troops move into place, right? So that's, I think, where we're at.
Well, you said boots on the ground. You mean Iran, not Iraq. Just for clarification, correct?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you. And Michael, before we move on to Rob Cunningham, I want to, we've talked about before correcting George W. Bush on what the real axis of evil is, and of course it's London, the Vatican, and D.C. But in terms of hierarchy of command and control on the three countries that have been themed out in this panel, would the proper order from bottom up be this? Would it be Iran to Israel, Israel to London? Is that kind of the flow of it? In terms of the power would be mostly London and Israel and then Iran.
I'd be interested in seeing what Rob Cunningham says, but I think that's the basically the way things are running. But of course, China is controlled by the city of London. We have a lot of groups out there that are controlled by the city of London. So it's going to be disclosed. It's going to be revealed. So there's lots to be revealed here. So that's the direction.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Rob Cunningham, let's take this on, if you will, sir.
Yeah, this is great. I love this discussion. I'm going to start maybe with 3 key points, and I'm going to underwrite what President Trump's boss said. Okay? That would be Jesus. Okay? He said that, first of all, my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. We become idiots, we're done. Number 2, this battle that we fight is not against flesh and blood, but it's against principalities of darkness. Evil exists in this world. We have to know it, we have to understand it, and we have to embrace the powers that we have. If our essence is omnipotence, then evil is just a story, it's a narrative, it's a boogeyman, but doesn't really have any power unless we consent, take a knee, run like scared babies, and surrender. Okay? But we have all the power. And then, Moloch and Baal, they never retired. They didn't take their hat off and take their cowboy boots off and say, you know what, we're going to close up shop now. We're out of business. We're not going to kill, divide, deceive, devour, destroy, eat humans and traffic babies. We're not going to do any of that. We're just going to become nice guys. That never happened. And then the last one is fear not. 365 times, fear not. So when you look at energy, and this is what President Trump's focus is on, it's on energy. He's even telling Israel and Iran to not destroy the energy infrastructure. He came out with a press release just a couple of days ago and told both of them to back the hell off, stop the bombing, and don't destroy not only the energy infrastructure, but the energy supply choke point that controls vitality. Money is kind of the blood flow, and oil is a blood flow that our world needs. So what is money? Money is it's a way of converting our human energy, our labor, our talent, our building, our businesses, our intellectual property, and converting it from human energy to physical tradable currency, right? Well, then they change that currency to dishonest currency that's fiat. They print out of thin air, and somehow or another, they have figured out how to broker this monopoly money that ends up being backed by all of our work, all of our lives, all of our property, and we give it to this little square mile group of assholes in the city of London. And we're like, where did our stuff go? Where's our wealth? Where's our property? It's not that we have a lack of wealth. It's we don't know what's been done to us. So what I see with President Trump doing with the special operators, the devil dogs, the people that are going to Iran right now, they're going there to rebuild and repave runways. They're going there in special joint tactical special operations groups that are going there not necessarily for boots on the ground for a sustained war. They're going there to reconstitute the joint with a new form of government. Now they've gotten rid of all the assholes, they've gotten rid of all of the 100 people deep from the mullah, from the Khomeini all the way down. They're going to third and fourth level walk-ons to become the new government players, and they're going to be disconnected from the choke point leverage controlling freaks out of the city of London. So these joint special operation forces, 82nd Airborne, Devil Dogs, Marines, special forces groups that Michael Jaco was part of, they're going there to set up a special operation for the continuation of government in a better way, not to go there for a sustained long war. They're going there for operational necessity. Trump wants to be known as the president of peace. We have 60, 70, 80 nations that are now members of the Board of Peace, as he's told, as he's flushing the United Nations and NATO down the toilet. Because neither one of them have been about peace or safety or abundance or liberty the world over. They've just been octopus arms of the city of London. They've just all been financed, proxies of this master that prints all this fake money around the world and controls everybody. I think if people would understand that Trump is a masterful architect, he sees the DNA of energy, which is in the form of oil and money and law, which is perverted law. It's admiralty legalities, it's counterfeit money, and it's a psyop. It's oil. So when we can make money honest again, we can make liberties real again, and we can get rid of these centralized monetary oligarch systems and distribute currency creation where it originates in 195 countries instead of the city of London, that's a damn good start. And I think that's what President Trump is showing the world, that when you let, what's the old saying, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely? That's what happened on our watch.
Thank you, sir. And I hope, as I'm doing, our audience is doing the same thing. And that is, we're not just hearing the words of this panel, but we're listening and listening very closely. Derrick, you want to take on the Straits of Hormuz before I move us into Cuba?
Yeah, I'll just really quick, touching back on Iran again, there's two things for the audience to remember. Again, always two things: what people got to see versus what you can know and what's actually going on. President Trump is a supreme commander of the world. The laws outline this. The military government outlines this. Remember that first and foremost. He is master chess. All right, and what's funny about this, there's a massive, to show people, you have to sometimes do this. I'm not going to name the name, but there's a influencer out there. He's got like 2 million followers. All right, and someone submitted a comment to him about chess, and you can tell they're a patriot. And he said, I'm so sick of chess and this. And President Trump, within a week, says it's a chessboard. So see, you got to be careful who you follow out there, because it is a chessboard. The real war was not between the people yet. Your fight comes in whenever all the, like we're talking about the money, everything, all the decentralization, the new systems being put in place, everything, all these facets that's being changed. So your fight comes in as Americans or around the world whenever the constitutional government is fully back in. And you will see that by law. We're not there yet. We're in a partial continuity government. But that applies to the world too. So, President Trump just alluded to this the other day. He said, who we choose. He talked about that with Venezuela. He talked about that with Iran, who we choose. That tells you right there, straight out the gate, we're in a military government, but it's a supreme commander of the world. So we're making sure, and that's what a military government does, is you appoint people. Now, President Eisenhower is the genius strategist around that. He's the one that had the presidential emergency action documents paired with the continuity of government. After you coming out of a continuity of government, you go into a military government. And what did his plan outline? His plan specifically outlined that you use businessmen and or veterans, all right? What is President Trump nominating right now on every spot? Businessmen and women and or special operations and also Navy SEALs first in these categories, and then other veterans as you work your way down. No one else. They're highly IQ, highly intelligent, highly successful. Now getting directly to Iran. I can make a joke. I can make a good joke. I can say, well, if you're demanding the instant success in Iran, even if you thought it was legit in the sense of it's going to be a war and boots on the ground, you have listened to these people and the specific Ayatollah yell death to America and death to Israel for almost 48 years. All right. And then guess what backs that up? Jimmy Carter has an executive order 12170 that was way back November the 18th, 1979, declared a national emergency. So every bit of President Trump's actions with Venezuela, Somalia, Yemen, Iran, etc., they're an Obama or Jimmy Carter executive order with a national emergency declared. So we're taking all of their abuse, their overreach, their constitutional abuse, the War Powers Resolution Act, which is unconstitutional in a whole, but what President Trump, the mastermind, and the generals and admirals have done is saying, you know what, we're going to take all their verbiage, we're going to take all their language, and we're going to play it on them. Guess what? You can't say it's unconstitutional because you morons are the ones who passed all this. So we're going to use it against you. So you got to kind of like when you're backing out a system, you got to use all the system's codes and then show the people it's all on their face. And that's all President Trump would have to do if this was a real setting and say, well, I didn't write these laws, I didn't pass these orders, I didn't pass any of these things. They did. So there's that. Now, the other thing that gives you consolation out there, maybe if you're a new listener or you're new on board, what gives you a consolation is the fact that this is you have back in 2019, the department, so the Defense Intelligence Agency, a lot of people remember a guy named General Michael Flynn, the Defense Intelligence Agency put out a new publication way back in 2019, specifically towards Iran. You might want to go read about that. What did Lieutenant Colonel Lennox just say about something that's a little bit more rabbit holey, but it talks about your domes, and it talks about thousands and thousands of miles of tunnels. President Donald John Trump is the first president in history to establish a strategy for subterranean warfare, which is tunnels. With his first executive order out the gate, Executive Order 13818, with a national emergency in December, the first, right out the gate in 2017, what did it declare? A national emergency. And then what is it about? Human rights abuse, which ties straight into all trafficking, all forms of trafficking, not just one in particular. So there's that. So let me show you, ladies and gentlemen. We struck Iran June last year to a nation who chanted death to America and death to Israel for 47 years. If they were going to retaliate, ladies and gentlemen, they would have retaliated from June to February when they had all their leaders before we sent them to goat heaven, which is really goat hell, because we know there's no such thing as with all the trash they believe in. All right, so we got to put some veteran humor in there for you. January the 20th, 2017, President Trump, right when the military walked down behind him, military intelligence headband, and also judge advocate generals behind him, which shows you we're going into a military government way back then. It wasn't just recently in 2021. It's been from day one. He said what? We're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. So that correlates with what he just told the Iranian people. Hey, when we get done, Iranians, take your country back. And he's been telling you humorously on the news and all these different things where he's traveling back and forth. They're asking him about the leader. He said, well, we don't know where they are. There's no leader. The son's missing. There's no leader. So he's having some fun with it. All right. So he's telling you right there that, hey, we got this under control. This is not a war like you think. And then like, Captain Rob here said specifically, he said specifically, It's the same thing. The boots on the ground there, they're all joint tactical. They're all special operations. They're all highly trained for this. And we're going in there. First off, we have nuclear facilities. All right. So there's certain things in there that's protection. All right. And you got to protect. And as President Trump said, we're not bombing the infrastructure of certain things. But what tells you that this is a flip? Outside of all the military laws, orders, etc., there's one key thing that President Trump said that roasted. And I'm talking about annihilated, roasted the Bushes, the Clintons, and everybody involved. He specifically said in a speech not terribly long ago, he said, why didn't we take the oil? He said, why did we take? Most people hearing, there's that hearing and listening, most people hearing would associate we with the United States of America. He's talking about that, but he's saying, why didn't we take the oil? Well, if you went up to anybody who lived through the 90s and the 2000s and you said, hey, do you believe that George Bush and the Bush administration and Clinton's, did they take oil from Iraq? They'd say what? Yes. All right. Now take President Trump's little excerpt again. He said, why didn't we take the oil? Well, most people thought we took the oil as the United States of America. The Bushes took the oil. This money went into London. This money went into the crown that we're talking about. It didn't go into the United States of America. It wasn't all of us, like Jaco said, when we're constrained. Every bit of our wars before, even if it would have been a legitimate war, it was constrained. They tie our hands behind our back. President Trump alludes to this all the time where he says, the general said, General Raising Cane, we can do this in 3 to 4 weeks. And he was like, what? The other guy said 3 to 4 years. And General Raising Cane, I'm probably just speaking on his behalf just a little bit, but he probably said, sir, those are your TV generals, right? I'm a real general if he was going to ever brag. So there's that. And the other little thing to show you that you just recently witnessed, ladies and gentlemen, was the resolution process. All right, why couldn't, quote unquote, Joe from 21 to 25, but more specifically 21 to 23, with a full Democrat president, Democrat House, Democrat Senate, why couldn't they pass a resolution on Iran? Well, there's already a resolution. President Trump's already told you that's Section 1550 in the War Powers Act. It's already there. He told you the State of the Union. I already have congressional authorization. I don't need it anymore. Plus, the big, beautiful bill for what's going on right now and moving into the future, President Trump alluded to that again. So all this money has already, the money for the war, the money for the conflict, the money for the operations, it's been bipartisanly passed. All right, it's already been approved. So that's the military government. So that's the two different things. And then the one biggie. I always have to add this in here. It sounds like it's external, but the funeral service, January the 20th, 2021, Joe Biden was given a funeral service. 3 cannons at Arlington is a funeral. That wasn't just a funeral for old Joe, though. That was a funeral for the crown. That showed you right there what you're about to witness from 21 to 25, ladies and gentlemen. If you knew what to look for, if you knew what to listen to and who to listen to, especially if you found someone like me and I led you to all these gentlemen here, or if it worked the other way around, however it was, once you hear that, it's like the Bible talks about. Once you've heard, you can't deny. If you deny, it'd been better not to know. And the Bible ties all ends like that. So the Strait of Hormuz and all these things have to do with regional. It has to do with the oil. And Lieutenant Colonel Lennox has the best analogy, so I don't have to expand on that. That's the absolute best answer that you can apply to it, is we've taken the oil, but money, as Captain Rob was talking about, is money is an object, right? But it can be used as a tool as well, and it depends on who is in command. So it goes back to who do you trust, and also what are they doing with what you trust. We have to have money of some sort to survive because all of our world has been geared around that. They can't rip the rug out of us. We have to be able to survive, or there would be pandemonium. So everything's kind of that boiling pot where you take the boiler down, ease it back down. You can't rip the rug out. And like Jaco said, it is what President Trump, the generals, the admirals are doing strategically. There's not even a word past brilliant that can describe it, but it's just biblical, historical, monumental in second place.
Thank you, Derrick. You mentioned earlier, alluding to the tunnels and portals as we'll go down them, quote, rabbit holies a little bit down the line. You're right, we will be doing that. And one quick mention, I can be corrected by anyone if need be, but I think I saw it's morning for me here, but my last night, a post from President Trump on Truth Social that through negotiation and conversation with Iran, they've now acquiesced and said we will not be building nuclear weapons of any kind. That's not a small detail, folks. But anyway, we've completed the hour now, and we're striving to go maybe another 30 minutes. Let's take on Cuba. 90 miles off the coast of Key West. Many folks have been down to that little place at the tip of Key West, that famous tourist spot, the most southern tip of the United States, reportedly. Cuba's just down the road, just on the other side of that water. And as President Trump has stated, he's been looking at this mess his whole life, and now he is doing something about it. He's, again, the starter, JFK, the finisher, Donald Trump. Lieutenant Colonel Bosi, let's discuss, if you will, Cuba. Will Cuba, and any way you want to go on Cuba, but one question specific is, do you feel Cuba will become, when all is said and done, a U.S. territory?
All right. Thanks, John. I'm going to be quick because I can't wait to hear what Derrick's got to say on this. Derrick, you're brilliant, mate. What can I say? Very quickly, will Cuba have U.S. territory? It already is. That's point number one. Point number two, Cuba existed as a thorn in the side of the US for decades because it was allowed to. There was no reason why it couldn't. That was allowed to happen. Point number three, this is what we're about to see in Cuba has already been effected in reality. It's just part of that operational level war, the campaign of leadership change, not regime change, but leadership change in key countries already been taken care of. It's all good. But it's just being rolled out now for the people to watch the show. As Derrick said, Donald likes to give the people drama because that's what the people like. So there you go. That's point number four. Point number five, the diaspora, the Cuban diaspora, and we've got them in Australia, we've got them in Florida, everywhere. They're chanting for the liberation of their home country, much like it's a replay of Iran. We saw all the Persians saying, please save us, Donald Trump. So again, it's a replay of that same strategy. Number five, that is number five. Number six is the blackouts that they're having now. That's to create drama. That's to create the clamor, the call for somebody to save their country because they're about to get their third blackout. So the stage is being set for the people to see what's already happened, but in a sequenced, I guess, a series of events that make sense for the what do you call them, Derrick? The target audience. Anyway, that's me done. That's a quick and dirty on Cuba. It's all good. It's all safe. It's in safe hands, and we're watching the show.
Thank you, Riccardo. I want to ask you a follow-up. You've mentioned twice now in this broadcast differentiating leadership change versus regime change. For folks like me, we might need some clarification on the difference between those two things.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You can't change a regime. The CIA has successfully led countless failures in regime change because they literally remove everybody that's got anything to do with anything good, and they put their own numbskulls in. The purpose of which is not to help nation building, which is always the one-liner. We're building nations. You can't build nations. It takes decades. It takes culture. It takes history. It takes morality. It takes a lot of things. So they destroy nations, and the regime changes there in order to make sure that the target nation actually becomes an effective profit center and point of leverage for the cabal to do what they want to do. What's happening, what we're seeing happening now is, it's much like, I think what some of the people out there call the grey hats. Previous black hats are now under control. They've had the 9mm pointed at their head. They've signed up to do what they have to do, to say what they have to do in order to stay alive. And that's the control mechanism, because you just can't change the polity, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the constabulary, the military. You can't change it and expect things to function. It won't. It's like denazifying Germany after the war. Patton famously said, if I get rid of all the Nazis, the country's going to collapse. We need people who can run the trains. We need people who can run the power stations. We need people who can run the banks, fill in the blank. And so what DJT is doing, and he actually mentioned he alludes to this in his national security strategy, where the countries have to pursue their own sovereignty, which is true. But the regime change is no longer the issue. It's changing the corrupt leadership, leaving the corrupt leadership underneath, and making sure that they're now doing what they are required to do. Now, here's the trick. It is all legal. It is all lawful on a couple of levels. Firstly, because everyone's under martial law, which is very different to working under the Constitution. But on top of that, the collapse of the corporations which ran the planet, the hostile takeover, let's call it, because Trump's a businessman. You got to remember, he does business. He doesn't do war. He does business. He sees an opportunity for another customer on his books, and so the approach is very, very different. It's very different, and he's told us exactly what he's doing, how he's going to do it. The bad guys will continue running the show, but the top guy's been taken out, singing like a canary. It's already happened. And the mechanism is in place for that country to start taking over. And there'll be a transition period from the removal of the visible leadership, let's call them, because we know that they're just puppets, but the visible leadership disappears. The hidden leadership goes in. There are still Venezuelans running Venezuela. There'll be Iranians running Iran. There'll be Cubans running Cuba. But the relationship on a legal level, in terms of are they going to be a territory, I believe they already are. And that's a result of the collapse of the hostile taker of the corporations. And then there'll be this period, and this is what the period of martial law is for, to transition them from where they are to where they need to be. And this will take time. Now, some countries will move quickly because they have a history of the democratic process. Others don't. Some countries have the history of a Christian foundation, which is the only moral foundation which gives a civilization a chance to advance beyond barbarity, because every other religion is a supremacist religion. And the moment you decide, well, by virtue of my birth, I am better than you, I will always be better than you, and you will never be able to exceed me, the moment you start on that premise, you're on the fast track to hell. There's no civilization that can grow out of that. So the Christian ethic of we are all made in God's image, and you don't have to be a Christian. I've said this before. You don't have to be a Christian, and don't. We've got enough shitty Christians as it is, so, hang on to where we want to believe. But you can enjoy the benefits of the Christian foundation, the Christian ethic, which underpins everything certainly in the Anglophone world, and the 2.3 billion other people on the planet that decide, you know what, this guy we nailed to a tree a few years ago, I think he's got the right idea. And if we build on his premises, not on biblical literalism, because that's a dangerous path to go down, but he showed us how to live, he showed us how to love, he showed us how to die. I mean, what better example can you have for a nation to begin, where we look after our weakest, because it is our obligation to whatever you do to these, the least of my brethren, you do unto me. What a line. Wow. And for the materialist amongst you out there that don't believe in the flying spaghetti monster, that statement, whatever you do to these, the least of my brethren, you do unto me, has a basis in quantum physics. Very quickly, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If you get two particles and expose them to the same event and then separate them by light years, whatever you do to one particle will be felt by the other. It'll resonate with the other. So there's quite a literal scientific basis to that statement. So I think it's a pretty good basis for a society where we look after our weakest. Everybody's expected to do what they are supposed to do. Life, government, the people, your neighbours are not your mattress for you to lie on. So somebody wisely said, life is a ladder, not a mattress. You don't lie down too long, you climb. But those that, the deserving poor, the deserving weak, they need to be looked after. And that fundamental underpinning of a Christian society is what we need. And so these countries will move quicker to where they need to be in terms of, once again, achieving progressively increasing levels of self-government to the point where maybe one day, and maybe some will never get there, one day we can actually re-establish ourselves as sovereign nations, because we have what your founding fathers, and I'll finish here, what your founding fathers repeated endlessly, that a constitutional republic, which I think is the best of all possible methods, is predicated on an educated and moral people. Your founding fathers repeated this statement again and again and again. You can't have, and in terms of the virtue, you can't have a free society without virtue. Otherwise, you need the religion police, and nobody wants that, including your founding fathers. But this education and virtue has to be reinvigorated, restated, redesigned. The crap's got to be thrown out. And then upon this basis, all these nations, all of them, Cuba included, have the possibility of moving forward. And so that's where, in the big picture, where the planet's going. This is what DJT wrote in his national security strategy. This is the plan for the future. It's going to take time. It's hard to see unless you look from a sufficient altitude. You get to see that Venezuela is a bit like Iran. It's a bit like Cuba. It's a bit like fill in the blank. And even other countries that aren't resisting actions from the United States will quite happily say, you know what? And when you speak for Australia, I said this publicly not long ago, we're incapable of saving ourselves. Australia was built by the Masons as a Masonic fortress. Of the 27 million, you've got, let's say, 10 million children. That leaves, 17 million? Of that 17 million, maybe 2 million are not Mason or controlled by Masons. You have 15 million people in this country, adults working, who are either Masons or are controlled by Masons because they get paid, they work for that particular franchise, they've got a mortgage to pay, they've been brainwashed, they've been whatever. And so in reality, can Australia, if we removed all the problems from Australia, all the Masons and all the crooked polity, judiciary, etc., could we run the joint? No. Why? Because it's tough to run a modern 21st century constitutional republic. We haven't got the wit, we haven't got the drive, the evidence. Where the hell is everybody? This has been going on for years now. Where are they? Where are the Australians standing up? They're not, just a handful. So we, Australia, we need a very strong relationship with the United States, for example. That might be in the form of, we might be under the suzerainty of the United States as a territory, where we have limited sovereignty of our own. The United States has established suzerainty over us. Why? Because we have to. Does it gall me to say that? I'm disgusted. I'm ashamed to sit here as a former commissioned officer in the Australian Defence Force, the Australian Army, and say, guess what? We can't do it. We need somebody to help us. How embarrassing is that? Dear Lord, I'm really sorry. We messed up. But that's the truth of it. And what you're seeing in Cuba, in Venezuela, and around the planet, you're going to see the same approach, where countries, and Trump has said this in his national security strategy, countries have the pathway to moving forward, but everybody needs a hand to get there. And here we go. Australia needs the United States like never before. And in return, what they deserve from us is absolute commitment to the plan, the strategy, all the way with Trump. Not because we're sycophants, not because we're worshipping the guy. It's a sensible strategy to get a country out of where it is, and maybe in a few decades, maybe we'll be able to do what we should have done years ago. And I'm lucky to have been old enough. Just had my 66th birthday. So I'm really pleased that I'm an old fart and I can actually look back at a different world. The last couple of generations have no clue. But this is just real politics. This is what's got to be done. And you can hide behind your skirt and pretend it's not happening. But I'd rather be upfront to the people and say, you know what, we're a territory of the United States. Why? Because they got us lawfully and legally with the collapse of the corporation. They own us. Why? Because we were previously owned by the City of London. Yes, okay. So as a hostile takeover, they now own us. Let's be upfront about it and realise that we only survive on the goodwill of the United States. And the United States that's why you're my second favourite country after Oz. Thank God for the United States. Thank God for your First Amendment. Thank God for your Second Amendment. Thank God for the Americans who are willing to use that to save themselves and therefore the planet. Anyway, there you go. That's a long answer to a short question. Sorry, John. I think I've cut into Derrick's time.
It's perfectly okay. I wish we had 5 hours to do these shows, but a couple of quick takeaways before we move through the panel on Cuba is that you've referred several times in this broadcast to the National Security Strategy document. Thanks to you, I've been aware of that. It's up on my website, folks, jmcbroadcasting.com. I think it's under the President Trump page or the resource guide page. I just don't remember, but that document is there, downloadable, readable, as well as other important documents from the administration. I want to bring that to everybody's attention. And, we too look forward to the day that the U.S. can, as you stated, lend a helping hand, if you will, to Australia And I hope that many Australians come aboard and welcome that versus throwing darts at Trump like some of our MAGA wafflers do here at home. And to that point, Derrick Johnson and I did a broadcast. We sat down for 2 hours. We published it less than a week ago, discussing that as the main theme. We have fake news. Mainstream media has been called out. We know who they are and what they're all about, and no one really listens to them anymore, anybody with any brains. But we have the same element taking place within the new media, the podcaster movement. Be careful who you listen to. A lot of the influencers are disruptors from various different ways, accomplishing the same mess that the mainstream media is doing. Whittle down your sources and listen to the episode that Derrick and I did. You'll find that on my Rumble channel and other places. Anyway, Cuba, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi has already stated Cuba already a territory of the U.S., and Michael Jaco seemed to have been nodding on that. Rob Cunningham, what's your, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi, Chambers, get your head together. Lieutenant Colonel, we know who we're going to. Tom Lennox, please comment on Cuba and the fact of it being a U.S. territory, your standpoint on that.
If we look at how big Gitmo is, yeah, it is. It's a territory. You laugh. It's true. And so if we look at the energy troubles they're having right now and all of this, that's all part of the movie, I think, and generally the movie we've talked about before. And Cuba is going to be, in some way, shape, or form, part of the United States. How, we don't know, but it'll be there. And I wanted to jump to something that Colonel Bosi said, and that was about Australia and the United States. Australia is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. All of the stock of Australia was bought up by Donald Trump in his first term in office. So for all intents and purposes, Australia is part of the United States.
Fascinating.
and that's my 30 seconds on Australia. But Cuba, they were a phenomenally successful little country of their own until Castro took over. And they've got the people there to do the things. It was a great place to go gamble and all that stuff, but they made a lot of money. And he took all that away from them. And I would say our CIA probably did that because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. And it's going to be not too long. And it won't take long to do what they need to do. And there are enough Cubans in Miami to probably go take over the whole country. Just a side comment.
They'd be very happy to do that. I think the opportunities in Cuba down the line they're going to be tremendous.
Take Rubio's family and they can go run the country.
There you go. All right.
You're laughing,
thank you, sir.
It's true.
I'm all for it. Thank you. Rob Cunningham, sir. If you, sorry, I'm out of sequence. I'm supposed to have a sequence according to Derrick Johnson, so we got to go to Michael Jaco. If you'll take this on, please. Cuba.
Yeah, I think we not too long from now we can all meet in Cuba and have a Cuba Libre together. That'll be nice. But I think that it is already part of America, territory. I think Canada is going to pretty much show the same thing here pretty soon. But the CIA basically took over Cuba. They were running Castro. Of course, there was all these rumors that CIA was trying to kill him. That was nonsense because they were running him. He was running narcotics through Cuba into America, and that would come eventually would start to come from Afghanistan with opium. CIA was running from bases that they were cleaning and harvesting and all that kind of stuff. And in some of the bases, they were manufacturing all of the opium and so forth, and it would fly through a roundabout way down to Cuba and come in through America. So these things will be disclosed as we move forward. But that's another operation that President Trump has stopped out. That was another reason why we had the embargo around the island to stop all that trafficking, and of course stop Cuba from selling itself out to other countries like Venezuela. Venezuela was run by Cubans, and once we went in there, the Cubans had to leave, so had to go back home where there was no more oil that was coming from Russia or from Venezuela. So all of that's been stopped out. I heard that Russia was trying to squeeze in some oil for them, but that's not going to get in. So I think it's all done. It's a done deal. It's a matter of days, maybe weeks before it capitulates and comes over, and we manage it. And like Rubio's family, there was one young lady in Cuba that did a Facebook post, and she asked, who would you pick? There's like the guy that's running Cuba now, or one of the families, like we talked about, Marco Rubio, if he would come down. Marco, I guess there was like so many people that picked Marco Rubio over the other guy. It was just staggering. And then, of course, there's no free speech there, so they told her to take it down. So she took it down, but thousands of Cubans had voted for Marco Rubio to come down. Marco Rubio was like, he laughed it off. He's like, I don't need any more jobs. I got too much going on my plate. Now, it's funny, looking forward, we're going to see these changes. They're going to come very, very quickly. Cuba, very quickly. We saw how quick Venezuela was. They just need a little bit of pressure exerted in the right places, and then it was over. And we have, Maduro is giving up all kinds of information on a lot of political people here in the United States. A lot of those guys probably going to be down in, down in Cuba at, the far end of Cuba Island, having a little court session, and then we'll see what happens. But a lot of these people that, have been, like I talked about earlier, that have been doing evil are going to be brought to justice. There's five courtrooms, I guess. They sent another $500 million down into Guantanamo to get more cells, more courtrooms that can broadcast the court proceedings, military tribunal. So it's coming. It's so close. It's so close. Everybody's going to be very excited about it. I know we talked about this for a long time. Got delayed, but it's definitely coming. And I think James Comey and John Brennan are probably going to be some of the first guys to go down there. So it's going to be good.
We're going to get to those individuals in my next question. Thank you, Michael. And, what comes to my mind, I keep going back to my little drop in there on Clint Eastwood's Good, Bad, and the Ugly. You can see a lot of the good right now, too, in the story of the Good, Bad, and the Ugly here. Trump is ending those that create endless wars by cutting off the choke points. And we're witnessing the death of dictatorships in this world, and that is good. So there's the good in the Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Same question to Captain Rob Cunningham, discussing Cuba and your take on this.
John, would it be possible for you to have your producers show one little image that I shared with them? I shared with Sandy. I don't know if you can put that on the screen or that's too difficult for 6 panels.
One of my producers can text me a yes or a no on that. Meanwhile, let's begin some dialogue on that. And if you get the image, just pop it up to my producer.
Yeah, so the point I wanted to, this is inspired by Derrick, we have to keep in mind the world's most powerful economic engine, 25% or more of the GDP, the future crypto capital of the world, the AI capital of the world, the energy producing capital of the world. We have President Trump, I call it the great 8 powers that this man has, but it's the White House, It's the UCMJ. It's the Law of War Manual. It's the Commander-in-Chief title. It is, did you see, I don't know if you saw in the last 5 days, CNN, I'm sure they were forced to air this, but they showed he has a 100% approval rating among GOP MAGA supporters. 100% MAGA support. I mean, whatever percentage that is, 20, 25, 40%, of the population. This man is the most powerful man in the world that is bringing sovereignty and clarity and transparency to the world. Think about what we just had today. The Clarity Act. Finally, the banksters and the crypto industry have come together to agree they're going to move the market structure legislation forward and sign the Clarity Act. Why is that important? Because if you don't have eyes to see, you cannot have an honest monetary system. And if we're trying to go away from a centralized, opaque, hidden, counterfeit, and weaponized monetary system that has ruled this world all the way back to the time Jesus exposed them and flipped over their money changer tables, we got back to that sort of a world power structure. To flip those tables over again, right side up, you have to have sound money, you have to have decentralization, you have to have honesty, and you have to have clarity. Because if you can't see all the variables, you can't run a mathematical calculation, you can't verify truth, you can't verify collateral, you can't verify the two parties to a mutual consent agreement. You can't have honest weights and measures, which is biblical. You can't have mutual consent. Mutual means two. It doesn't mean me and you and the Federal Reserve. It means me and you, or the Treasury and me, but not me, the Treasury, and the Federal Reserve. Mutual means two. The Federal Reserve was the interloper that got superimposed over the United States that then created this money-washing, laundering machine out of the District of Columbia. They called it a financial system with Bretton Woods. And that was 80 years ago. But for 330 plus years, the Rothschilds have been running the whole structure, the whole global monetary structure, the capital markets, and the foreign exchanges. But they set up 80 years ago this little money laundering operation. They gave it a cute little name, the Federal Reserve System. They let us think like we were big boys and girls, and we ran things through this financial engine. But Wall Street was just a derivative of the City of London that has run the whole world. So in order to shut down that partnership, you have to have full transparency, honesty, sound money, clarity, and decentralization so that we can trust protocols, math that's verifiable and instantaneous. We can all trust something that we can see with our eyes, measure, calculate, and figure out whether it's true or false. And we no longer have to place our trust in institutions that are hidden and that are secret, and the trust me bro ethos, the golds in Fort Knox, the checks in the mail. We're not doing fractional reserve lending. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is, in the big scheme of things, with the amount of power that President Trump has, UCMJ, war powers, law of war manual, continuity of government, the Treasury, the commander-in-chief title, the world's most powerful military, this little blip on the map down called Cuba is not a damn problem. It's already been dealt with. He can do with it what he wants to do. If he can go into, supposedly the Cuban military forces were supposed to be in the ground in Venezuela defending Maduro. How well they do there? If they can't protect Maduro is their bodyguard. How the hell are they going to protect their own homeland when Trump comes knocking on the door? So it's not really an issue.
Thank you. Quick comment. I see golf courses, I see casinos, I see beach resorts, I see all kinds of Trump-labeled properties down the line, perhaps down there, and look forward to that. And I certainly would love to go to Cuba once the mess is cleaned up. Certainly don't want to go there today. We have that image to our producer. If you want to pop that image up, Rob, if you will, walk us through this very briefly. All you just did, but now we've got the nice visual. Just take us through it in a minute or so if you can.
Sure. I mean, I just want you to see what are the great 8 powers that President Trump has at his advantage. If the world would understand who is he, what does he represent, and who underwrites his authority. Not only does he have the White House, he's got the Law of War Manual, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, national emergency powers capabilities. He's got 100% of the MAGA GOP support, which is no small amount of human capital behind him. He has God's truth, the inalienable, indivisible, indestructible laws. I mean, the Constitution was born as a declaration. It was an oath to the giver of laws, which is God. Okay? The Bible, I'm not talking about religions here. I'm talking about laws and principles. There are 1,086 versions of the Bible in different languages. There are 12 different editions of the Bible for the blind. There are over 30 million copies of this law book, this quantum laws and principles book that are sold every single year. Somehow or another, 30 million doesn't make the New York Times bestseller list. But when you have a nation that is born on the principles of the greatest book ever written, the law book, that is more popular around the world than any other, and you have all these other powers, and we actually have somebody with the grit and the fortitude to execute on those powers instead of just go along and be bought off by the people that create a bunch of fake money because so they can get a little bit of money and power and then not give two damns about what happens to the rest of the world because they got theirs. Now we have a billionaire, the first CEO ever to walk into the White House, who doesn't need any more money, who doesn't take a salary, and is executing on the laws and principles of the greatest book ever written. And so if people can't put that kind of context into where are we today? What's going on in the world? Who's calling the shots in the world? Who is the most powerful man with the greatest amount of wealth and money and stature and economic growth and allies? I mean, I'll leave it at this. We now have a 5-nation coalition bloc that represents about 60% of the world's power. It's basically brand new, but it's on the scenes, and you can hear Trump talk about it. He's even made reference to it. It's the United States, China, Russia, India, and Japan. Those 5 nations represent about 60% of GDP, rare earth minerals, energy, growth, capacity. It is a bloc totally different than BRICS, and it sure as hell is not the United Nations. But that's one hell of a 5-nation bloc that if they come together and they vote and they support and they decide something's going to happen, you can bet your ass something's going to happen when those 5 are all locked in arms and they're working together. That's a 5-block nation led by a man named Donald John Trump that people need to get real comfortable with because that's the new power center of this world.
Thank you. Wow. You know, we talked earlier about Trump ending endless wars, and I used the term of the death of dictatorships we're beginning to see around the world. We might as well add dictatorships don't just come in the form of countries. They come in the form of central banks. They come in the form of the Federal Reserve, and they come in the form of the IRS that you so brilliantly laid out here. And we're going to see the death of that too. That's already underway. Derrick Johnson, Cuba.
Well, I tell you, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi and Captain Rob, when you were playing baseball in your backyard years ago when you were a kid and you didn't have a friend to play with and you had your bat in one hand and the ball in another and you had to throw it up to yourself, we're about to have a grand slam right here, right? So I always start out with, so Lieutenant Colonel talked about our founders, United States of America. And this is not a book that I wrote. This is a book that everybody needs to have on their shelf. I know Rob he might have To Kill a Mockingbird sitting behind him back there, but more than likely Rob's bookshelf back there has a lot more of this that we're talking about, knowledge. All right, this right here will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that, of course, this is PDF form. You don't have to get that hard copy, but military law and, martial law, more particular military government, but there's another book as well called Military Law and Precedents. But things like this right here will tell you the absolute powers that Rob's photo just showed, which, by the way, I'm going to steal that from you, but you're going to get, obviously, 100% credit every time I show it because I'm that kind of person. I don't take people's stuff. That was a beautiful photo. But in this book right here, ladies and gentlemen, this will tell you specifically what I was referencing earlier about how the president can most certainly declare war in times of hostilities. And guess what supports that? The Constitution. It tells you in our military laws, from all the way back to 1775, it tells you in federal law and the laws throughout between that the Constitution supports military government. See, that's the stuff that people got to hear. Law is a written discipline. All right, words matter, terminology matters, grammar matters, punctuation matters. It doesn't say that military government supports the Constitution. It says the Constitution supports military government. All right, because we were established first in this nation, and we're the first line of defense, and we're your last line of defense. And unfortunately, you got to your last line of defense before there would have been an all-out revolutionary war on the ground in the United States of America. So these books right here will absolutely sharpen your skills on knowing what is and what isn't constitutional, and you'll find out quickly. On page 23, it tells about the independence of the president, that he can declare war. And I'm seeing it ties directly to Cuba, and it ties directly into the military government. So it'll be your validation, but also your chicken nuggets, if you will. Also on page 33, it talks about what I talked about specifically, the command. Who's in command? What are they using? Well, President Donald John Trump is in command, but he's a supreme commander of a military government, military occupation all over the world, and it's the same terminology that was given to President Eisenhower, who was a master strategist. All right, so there's one thing that ties in overall directly, indirect manner to Cuba, but it needs to be said, and it's a great place to do it right here for the first time. I haven't even done it except for one other time on my podcast recently because of where we are, the fatigue that set in with a lot of people out there. Some of that's okay. Sometimes it's not. But our founders that Lieutenant Colonel Bosi was just talking about, our founders of the United States of America, right? Philosophers, theologians, you name it. But 29 of 30 of our primary founders, let me repeat that one more time. 29 of 30 of our primary founders of the United States of America were all military. So when you look at the playing board, the chessboard, and where we are now, our founders back then would have never probably dreamt that we'd get to a place in America where 68%, 70%, 75% of Americans cannot even name the three branches of government or what they're whining, complaining about, and they always whine. It's all over the board, right? Like Lieutenant Colonel Lennox was talking about earlier. It's like the response is just everywhere. And then you go back to what President Trump said in 2020. He said the cure cannot be bigger than the problem. And the problem was established by the deep state who wanted you to look this way. So if you'll apply that to your mind and go, man, they wanted me to look this dumb. They wanted to humiliate me and embarrass me and all these other things. That's on the low. The other is to actually take control of you and do all kinds of things with you, but also your children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been a playing board like that for years. So if you'll take it personal the correct way and then flip that script, if you will, and become part of the fight the correct way, then you'll see your role and your purpose in life. And so many of you haven't found your purpose yet, right? You're existing and you're probably a good person, but you got to find your purpose. The president can most certainly declare martial law without you knowing about it. It depends on how hostile the enemy is and who they are. Do you know who they are? No, you don't. You don't know who they are. So the good thing about our foundation is the fact that it allows the President Trump, the generals, the admirals, but more specifically the president, all out law in these books right here that I just showed you, and also in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 14 of our United States Constitution. It gave Congress the powers to do what? To make regulations for the Army and the Navy. But guess what happened in 1875? The Congress of 1875 gave that to the who? President. So if you go look in all of our laws, predominantly you're going to see the president's name everywhere. So he most certainly can do what he did. Now, what's this got to do with Cuba? Well, what Lieutenant Colonel Bosi said, we've already been in martial law. It's called martial law proper. We've been in martial law proper. And if you go read the Law of War Manual, as you saw in Captain Rob's picture there, the Law of War Manual specifically tells you, one on page 38 and another on page 795 of the Law of War Manual specifically, it tells you that the Law of War Manual supersedes the Constitution, meaning the law of the land. The Law of War Manual does, because it's international based. All right, now look at all the capitulations that's been made. All right, so then you got to look at the three military jurisdictions. There is a military law, a military government, and then the martial law proper. Go read those entities in the Law of War Manual. Go read the verbiage that surrounds that. You've seen that with President Trump. So I'm looking at my notes because I want to be short and concise here. But what ties Cuba in present day to President Trump? This more than validates, and I said this on a podcast yesterday, I said, in reality, especially these gentlemen here that served a lot longer than I did, way a lot more accolades, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, highly deserving. But, it should be almost an insult, though, in another manner, that so many people have to have proof from a service member of laws of which they didn't even know existed in the first place. Because most people don't know about military law being separate. And so when President Trump rolls down the escalator, June the 16th, 2015, just 4 days before that visual, the new Law of War Manual was put out. Federal and military attorneys took the Law of War Manuals from different nations and also the Lieber Code of 1863. They took the Geneva Conventions, Hague Conventions, and the Nuremberg Trials. They took all the strengths of those and combined those. New Law of War Manual, 4 days before the escalator. Fast forward, February 2016. President Trump was speaking somewhere. Obama was speaking somewhere. Obama told the audience that he said, oh, and by the way, we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. President Trump, same day, in his speech said, oh, I heard somewhere, someone chirping somewhere, that we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. No, we're not. We're going to keep it open, and we're going to load it up with lots and lots of bad dudes. All right? In another quote somewhere, he said tens, plural, tens of thousands. So that's a double plural. Tens of thousands. All right? Well, that was February 2016. So from February 2016 all the way to January the 20th, 2017, how come Congress didn't shut down Guantanamo Bay? An executive order that Obama put in was in 2009. Now, an executive order alone doesn't shut down Guantanamo Bay, but Congress would have to do that. Why didn't they shut it down? Well, look what followed. April 2016, special operations. You see this ball cap back here. All the colonels sitting here and different people on the stage. No, you can't buy that from a store. You have to either be externally recruited on the outside by a certain entity to get those. But the Special Operations Command put out a new publication called Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. And in there, from 1966 to 2016, one word changed in the pyramid for revolutions of resistance. It went from agitation to assassination. We can use assassinations for special operations? Yes, we can when you're playing with the military government and a chessboard. Now, that unconventional warfare pocket guide specifically talks about government in exile and a shadow government. Now, they use a puppet government and a shadow government kind of in a hybrid warfare because we're in a new strategy, whole different ball game, whole new playing field. So what are the odds that that came out in April 2016 with all these things that you've seen throughout time, all right, the last 10 years? The next month, out of nowhere, the more liberal-based Supreme Court, just out of nowhere, says, Donald John Trump, he's running for office, but, we just need to go ahead and clarify one thing. Come on, people. This is where you got to give a come on, people, right? The more liberal Supreme Court, the Ginsburg crew, all right, they, out of nowhere, clarify in the Military Justice Act of 2016 that was passed in the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, which is the defense budget. They clarify that military laws and courts are separate from federal laws and courts. What did President Trump do? Well, President Trump, in January the 30th, 2018, he revoked the portion of Obama's executive order to shut it down. How come, quote unquote, Joe, with the same power, if he was president, ladies and gentlemen, you got to ask it this way, from 21 to 23 with an all Democrat everything, he couldn't revoke executive order 13823 by President Trump that keeps Guantanamo Bay open? So you got to apply that. Now let's fast forward a little bit. That authorization we're talking about, December the 20th, 2019, Section 1550 is part of that NDAA of 2020, but it's temporarily coded over in the War Powers Resolution, which is unconstitutional overall. But what President Trump's doing with it is playing on all their abuse and all their overreach. And he said it in the State of the Union, and he just said it in his speech again a couple days ago in Memphis, where he said, I already have a congressional authorization. I don't have to go back for it. I already have it. That is exactly what that is. So how come, quote unquote, Joe and them couldn't pass resolution from 21 to 2025? And then from 2025, what people think as a Congress, the whole 2025 year, they couldn't put up a resolution for Iran. We struck Iran in June. Why didn't they put up resolution in June? Because it's already in the War Powers Resolution Act. Now, how's this tying to Cuba? Well, way back in 2020, and this is by Lieutenant Colonel Bosi and Captain Rob. So way back in 2020, on March the 13th, President Trump declared a verbal national emergency. A lot of people thought this all had to do with COVID, but they weren't seeing the bigger playing field. All right. March 24th, there was mainstream articles saying that President Trump's going to suspend the Constitution. He may install a general in case the law breaks down. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the correct terminology, but it was a way to slide it in there for a proclamation, for timestamp, for history's sake. That's exactly what they're telling you. Guess who the general was? The general was the general of whom? Northern Command. Guess who handles continuity of government? Northern Command. All right, that's what that was talking about. If the law breaks down, that means constitutional law. It won't break down like they were saying, but that was a way to slide it in there to show you that we were going into martial law proper already. All right, so it's all lawful. It's all in the law war manual, the 3 types of military jurisdiction. It's all been backed by federal law way back 1775 and 1787, more specifically with the Constitution. Now you got to go to what President Trump said in March 2020. He said this. He said, we're fighting an invisible enemy. We've been invaded. It's an invasion. We've been invaded. It's an invasion. He repeated that over and over and over. Also in October 2020, he said some things. November 2022, he said our gravest threats are not abroad, they're within. So he's telling you who the defined enemy is, which is the exact definition of what you need for martial law proper, is the hostilities within. This is not a foreign hostility. Those also have laws and orders with it too, but the very specific verbiage that he's using, he told you this way back March 2020. All right, it's an invasion, an invasion, an invasion. Go read the specific language in the law war manual under the 3 types of jurisdiction for martial law property. What does it say? Martial law proper, excuse my language. It says specifically invasion or an insurrection. And then go read military government and martial law, and it specifically talks about all the other invasions that we've had in history. It gives you layers of examples when the president had to act, not just Abraham Lincoln with the Civil War. This layers all different hostilities that we've faced in the U.S. that the president had to act on his own, not Congress. Now, that goes back to, before I get to the punchlines, that goes back to, who would you want? If you had to choose, would you rather have a bunch of suits and ties in D.C. who they can't even handle their own finances because they have to cheat so much? Or do you want these fine gentlemen right here leading guys like me? Because every one of these guys right here, and I don't mean that derogatory towards them because they know what I mean, but every one of them could come to a soldier who is lower enlisted and say, hey, do this for me, especially when the lower soldier knows their background and who they are, and et cetera. Every one of these guys right here could tell me to walk through a mile of dog crap, and it's going to have a few fiery ashes in between, and I'm going through it because I know what kind of mission we're going on and what the goal is going to be at the end of it. All right, so who do you want? Do you want to trust the military, or are you going to trust a bunch of suits and ties who don't know jack? Well, I'm going to say some other words I should say, but they don't know anything. All right, so now watch this. March 27, 2020, President Trump, Executive Order 13912, he invoked Title 10, Section 12302, 1 million reserve components active duty. All right, April the 1st, where were people yelling about Venezuela? That's when the actual launching of the command, well, it's not the command, but the whole operation of Southern Command launched the operation in the Caribbean, April the 1st, 2020, named all their joint partners, the same joint partners you're seeing right now, April 1st, 2020. All right, then you fast forward, April the 30th. This is where it ties in right here. This is very exact terminology to Cuba. President Trump, Executive Order 13919, he invoked Title 10, Section 12304, which is a 2-year preparation. You got to have 2 years in advancement for those actions. All right, guess what the exact terminology is in that executive order? A counter-narcotics operation with whom? The Western Hemisphere. President Trump just did an executive order January 29, 2026 in a national emergency with Cuba. And guess what it says in there? Western Hemisphere. Oh my goodness, there's your direct ties right there. The only person who's used that language is President Donald John Trump, but the executive order and the executive action is way back 2019. So how did it make it through 2021 to 2025? Ladies and gentlemen, that is not a ghost authorization. That's not the operation of military use of 2001, because National Guard and reserve components will be more keen to the president. And if the president was abusing power somehow with the National Guard, then it would be proven how? By laws and orders. All right, so those laws and orders didn't make it from 21 to 25 because, quote unquote, Joe didn't know what the heck he was doing. He was a babbling fool and all these other things. This is a military operation. It's a military government. The military government supersedes the Constitution. It suspends it, if you will, but for good reasons. It suspends your First Amendment and your Fifth Amendment, and then the SCOTUS validates that with the 1798 Aliens Act, which also suspends the First and the Fifth Amendments, all right? So little things like that can show you, and then also Guantanamo Bay is still open, all right? Del Rio, Texas. How did 2,000 dirt poor Haitians get from Cuba and Haiti and all these places to Del Rio, Texas? And President Trump validated me on February the 14th. I'm the only one who kind of talks kind of with my own unique way. And President Trump on February the 14th on True Social put up a unique kind of little meme, and it was kind of a cutesy little thing. And it said, Happy Valentine's Day to all the people who support people. And it said 1,537 miles away. I'm the only one who's ever said, ladies and gentlemen, do you realize what they're telling you, that these people in Del Rio, Texas, the closest nation is 1,536 miles away, and you have to cross a major waterway to get there? So 2,000 dirt poor Haitians went all the way across the Gulf of America to Mexico. Forget about Florida, forget about Alabama, forget about Mississippi, forget about Louisiana and all this massive coastline of Texas. They said, no, we're going through the waters, the elements, we're going through all of it. We're going straight across here, the sharks and everything else that can get us. We're going right there, and we're going to walk all the way across Mexico, and then we're going to go right here to this part of Mexico and Texas, and hey, this is where we want in. Ladies and gentlemen, all that is the part that people have to see if you don't know what we know over here. All right, so President Trump validated that when he used the 15. We were 1 mile off, and no one ever even talks like that. So they're showing you what you can know out there, especially if you're a Patriot and you're hanging on. And then one other reason why President Trump called it the Gulf of America, because we're probably going to be adding some nations to the United States of America, possibly. I don't know, maybe.
Oh, I don't know where to follow up with that, other than that's a master class from Derrick Johnson. Thank you, sir. And a double thumbs up from the Lieutenant Colonel and the Captain. You know, a couple of quick comments, and we'll wrap up with one more subject. As a follow-up, you don't, to our audience, as reminders, you don't need. The commander-in-chief is not required to tell you that a martial law of sorts has been invoked. There's a big takeaway. Second, you know, a lot of the documents that Derrick's referred to, PEDS, executive orders, Riccardo Bosi spoke about the national security document. A lot of these things are available on my website under the resource guide page and/or the President Trump dedicated page. And again, on the contributors page, links to all these panel speakers, links into Derrick's world so you can follow him more closely. 1776, the documents, Derrick's work is also posted under these pages on the site. And a quick comment about Sleepy Joe. You know, you raised it a few times that he had the opportunity to shut Gitmo down and do other things, revoke other executive orders that would have been supposedly in that party's best interest, and was never done. And of course, the reason for that is because of that cannon salute that you discussed before. That's the reason why that was never taken down. And then lastly, meaning the funeral of Joe Biden. And then lastly, that dash you've often spoke about, not in this broadcast, Derrick, but plays into this as well, because continuity of government, one could call Mar-a-Lago, yes, perhaps the acting command central during such 4 years, which is also one reason one would speculate why it became a no-fly zone over a golf course. All right, anyway, enough on one last thing. If you're not, look, I'm no different from the audience. I'm actively in citizen action, not in military, but I'm doing my role and my part. But, you know, how can we know all the things that this esteemed panel knows? The answer is we can't. We haven't walked in their shoes. So before you criticize and accuse, walk a mile in their shoes or learn the documents that Derrick Johnson just nailed down for us all. And if you're unwilling to do that, you know what? Shut up and listen. All right, I'm finished lecturing those that are in the way. And it's very few of us, but they're out there. You know, if you're throwing darts at the board, and the board has these people's faces on it, and our Constitution and our program, you got to shut up and listen or get out of the way. But anyway, I had a few other subjects I really wanted to get into, but we're unable to due to time constraints. So I'm going to ask this panel to be 120 seconds or less, brief comment on these subjects. These subjects do need much more to unload, and we'll be unloading some of that on Bosi Briefs this coming Monday. So come there, and we'll pick up some extra mileage at that broadcast. But I want to say, bring us to my producer, put up the Truth Social published piece from President Trump. That'll put me on track to closing this out. Breaking Directive Nash. Okay, I'm not going to read it, but the bottom line is, we've known about this, but it's important to bring it to our attention. The information's been released. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, on connecting the dots on the Russiagate issue, and all the names are in there and all the evidence is there. And President Trump closes this out with arrest Obama. Now let's go back to the panel screenshot. This is not a small issue. I mean, when do we ever recall a circumstance like this, where a former president, where a DNI has released evidence, overwhelming evidence, implicating all those that the administration directed to get things done, all a lie. Russiagate, Steele dossier, and the cost of that to our nation, to everyone's lives, not only here in America, but all over the world, like all the dead people in Ukraine, for example, never had to happen. All of this stuff is unbelievable and unprecedented. So having said that, my question, coming back to the top of the panel, give us 2 minutes or less, each of us, because I got two other points we're going to run through and wrap up the show. Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi, do you believe that the subject matter we just had on the screen, which basically all roads lead to Obama, Brennan, Clapper, all those people that did the dirty work that are also guilty, my question is, to me, it's a foregone conclusion that justice will be served. They will have their day in court, in military court, if it already hasn't happened. Things will be done properly and standardly. And justice will be served. And if it's already been, it'll be shown to us. My question is this. Will the prosecution of Russiagate and Barack Obama and all those individuals, Brennan, Clapper, and the whole clan, will this be shown, will this happen and or be shown to the American people before July 4th? Is this something that can extend out to 2027 or 28? That's the question. 2 minutes or less around the board. Riccardo Bosi, please.
Yeah, for my money, no. It's got to come out first, because the reason it's so critical is a couple of points. First one, Barack Hussein Obongo signed the paper, not because he had any power, because they needed the alleged authority to have it done. But what it represents is a message to the people of the United States that your president was corrupted, and therefore everything underneath him is corrupted. So the whole system has to be dismantled. Nobody can walk away from this moment and say, well, no, there's a couple of good people still left. No. Everybody, Democrat, Republican, the whole system must be dismantled. And so from the very top all the way down, there can be no one left standing saying, I'm innocent. No. And it's got to be done, for my money, before July 4th, because the people need to go through the worst pain sooner rather than later so they can have this release and genuinely have something to celebrate on July 4th. And the world as well, because implications will flow down. But that's it for me. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so again, nobody has a crystal ball, folks, but having these gentlemen weigh in on this is very important. Again, very briefly, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, Obama and all those others, does this get addressed and processed to some extent that we need before July 4th or after? And if after, could it go into next year?
They committed treason. We have to tell the people about the treason. And we have to tell it before we celebrate 250 years of this country. And if they committed treason, they need to go to Gitmo and be hung.
Thank you, sir. Michael Jaco, sir, if you want to take this on. Again, I know it's a crystal ball question, but it's on the minds of everybody out there. Believe you me, the blood is boiling on this. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, they're being held accountable, but we have to understand that there were some entities that were far more powerful over them that gave them the power that they had to do what they did. So, yes, they will be held accountable and they will be dealt with, but then we have to go to the next level up, and that's going to be interesting.
Wow. Thank you. Cliffhanger there. Come back next month or follow Michael Jaco daily. Thank you, sir. Very important. Captain Rob Cunningham, sir.
Well, Michael just set me up beautifully. I owe you a beer, my brother. I didn't ask him to set it up, but look, to underwrite what Derrick has talked about, he has got a PhD in laws and orders and manuals and doctrines and principles and authorities and what can and can't be done. If you don't believe that we have been the targets on the battlefield and that the other side has been meticulous in their laws and constitutions and perversions and admiralty law systems and fake monetary systems and fake money systems. You know, the good book says you can't serve two masters. This is a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It is an over 800-page document explaining the fake monetary systems, rules, laws, and orders that created the entity that could purchase a Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro Hussein Obama, and put him illegally with treason and sedition in the White House to try to put America 6 feet under the ground. They never thought Hillary would lose, but it takes an entity that I had the pleasure of interviewing G. Edward Griffin in his home and spent an entire day with him. A movie just came out called Money Disrupted. It's a 2-hour documentary. It's got Ron Paul, it's got G. Edward Griffin, it's got Robert Kiyosaki, it's got a lot of brilliant people in it. I was blessed to be in the movie. But if you want to know the powerful forces behind Obama, you can start right here. This is the City of London. This is how they took over the world. And the Federal Reserve was just a little outpost of the City of London. So when you understand how these people think and operate, the power which they come from, you got to pull that system up root and branch and start back with a constitutional treasury that doesn't have anything to do with the Federal Reserve System. When we start there,
Thank you.
New birth of freedom.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Derrick, very briefly. Obama and the rest processing before July 4th next year. Your crystal ball says what?
I completely agree, because the fact that 250, the odds that all of us will live to see 275 or 300, they're not there. So all of us living right here, right now, 250 deal. So President Trump's executive order 13848 with the national emergency for election interference. Our National Guard has been deployed 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. So there you go again. Why would quote unquote Joe have the National Guard 22 and 24? They're tracking joint partners all around the world. And then you got to go back to October 2020. Joe, it was you, Joe, who recommended the Logan Act on General Michael Flynn to Obama. It was you, Joe. They tried a coup, and we called them. We called them all. Right, so all of these ye little fake, all these people that Jesus went into the temple and flipped the tables over for, you might want to just pause a little bit. Put them brakes on, all right, because that's what President Trump's talking about. The coup was actually tried in 2016, and I can prove on all of my other podcasts, not time right now, but 2016 that we actually took over elections then, because that's how we had to know what they were working with, follow the money, and also follow everything else. And yes, I think that they have to show something before then, because if we've got so much plague and darkness and blackness to the people out there, not all of us here, but it'll overshadow the 250.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close the show out in reverse. Guys, gentlemen, with all due respect, give me 30-second answers just to wet the whistle. I know this is on the minds of the people. I don't want to let it go away. We can't go into detail, but here we go. Airplanes and airports. Coincidences or something going on, Derrick? Airplanes and airports. Look at the news feeds today. Denver shut down.
There's always there's always something on the chessboard, because people have to. You have to distract some people and keep things going, but there's always something. And like I tell people real fast, if you think something, just pause, give it a little while, and you'll see either a bait and a switch, always with something.
Thank you. And one more thing, Derrick, and we'll take this through the panel, and we'll be wrapping up in 3 or 4 minutes, folks. Elvis Presley. In the middle of all that's going on, that this panel just woke the world up about for 2 hours, all this important things at the final phase of this battle, this war, these battles. President Trump takes time to go pick up a guitar and tour Graceland. Any quick comment about that, Derrick? And if not, that's okay. Just anything.
Well, he's a big fan of Elvis. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. He plays Elvis all the time. President Trump's in control of the sound system, so you're going to hear Elvis all night. And then what people need to know about Elvis really fast. He was Southern. He was a country boy. He's from Tupelo, Mississippi, not Memphis first. They moved to Memphis. He did not go down as a draftee. He went and signed up, enlisted in the United States Army. A lot of people don't know that. He didn't take some fancy deal, anything like that. He didn't want to be treated any different. He served this nation. He got a federal badge from Nixon. All right. He would have had a reason to go into witness protection, and I'll leave it like that.
Thank you. That's a great place to leave it. And one thing I'll mention, so the video clip, Elvis had blonde hair. Okay, let's take it into Mike. I don't know where I'm going. Just look at the screen. Michael Jaco, please comment, if you will. Airplanes and Elvis.
Yeah, airplanes. I'd be very careful getting on airplanes going forward. I think we're going to probably have some problems there. So just we'll leave it at that. Elvis. I love Elvis. I grew up with Elvis, and I think Elvis is still out there playing.
All right. Well, we have some speculations on that. Thank you, Captain Rob. Airplanes and Elvis. What a way to end a military panel, but it fits. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. I believe that one of the Q drops on the intel board talked about how some people might try to flee and they might not be able to. So we got a little extra protection and security at the airports, and they're about to lower the boom on some people. It might be a little bit more difficult for these girls and gals to flee the country. So unique. 2 weeks ago, I was coming back from visiting my beautiful daughter, who's the Ole Miss freshman, and I just had the compunction to pull off the side of the road in Tupelo and spend about 3 hours touring Elvis Presley's birthplace and museum. So I'm going to go with, yeah, he's still around.
All right. Wow. Fascinating. Great stuff. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox, we're on the edge of our seat waiting for your words on airplanes and Elvis.
Airplanes, I wouldn't get on one right now for all the tea in China. And it's been that way for a year for me. Elvis, I've heard Elvis play with his son from the church in Mississippi, in Arkansas, where he's the pastor.
Understood.
That's my
All right. Thank you very much. And we'll close out where we began with my good friend, retired Lieutenant Colonel of Australia One, Mr. Riccardo Bosi. Airplanes and Elvis.
Okay. Yeah, airplanes. It's an obvious show to the people. The cues are gone. Things are moving. It's evidence that people needed to see something happening. And whatever that something is, they're all speculating, but they can see something good happening at the airports. The queues are disappearing. ICE is doing good work. They're polite. They're doing that. It's also misdirection because there are other things happening as well. So whenever you see a publicized activity, it's a misdirection because something else is going on. Oh, I don't know, Denver Airport, where the arrival and departure of heavily tooled up individuals won't attract any attention. As far as Elvis goes, what a great way to introduce the idea that maybe, just maybe, a whole bunch of people aren't dead. Let's kick off with Elvis. And then we've got, I don't know, Queen Di. And then we've got RFK Jr. Then we've got Robert David Steele. Then we've got the whole of Valhalla empties itself onto the TV screen. But what a great way to start with Patriot and President Trump. That's me done.
Excellent. I want to salute all you gentlemen and thank you for your continued service to freedom. God bless you all. Fantastic panel. And I'm not going to say anything, Derrick, but I'm going to say this. Derrick Johnson has a very big announcement to make. You want to follow Derrick Johnson. He'll be making that announcement at some point. He privied this panel to it. And thank you for that, Derrick. And so you'll want to continue to follow Derrick Johnson. Trust me on that. And everyone else on